$350 million. That's what Zach Bryan just walked away with after selling his entire music catalog. The same guy who was recording songs on his iPhone outside Navy barracks in 100-degree heat. The same artist who spent $200 to master one song because that's all he had. How does someone go from that to this? Most people think they know the story. Small-town kid picks up a guitar, posts some videos, gets discovered, becomes a star. But that's not what happened here. What actually went down is way more complicated and honestly more interesting than the fairy tale version everyone's selling. Zach Bryan didn't get lucky, he didn't go viral by accident, and he definitely didn't sell his catalog for $350 million because of some overnight success. There's a pattern here that nobody's talking about, a specific sequence of decisions that turned a Navy guy with a guitar into one of the most valuable artists in country music. Let's start where it actually began, not with the viral moments, not with the hit songs, but with the choice that made all of this possible in the first place. Oologah, Oklahoma, population 4,000. That's where Bryan grew up after being born on a Navy base in Japan. His family had served for generations. Dad was Navy, Mom was Navy, Grandpa was Navy. The path was already laid out. You graduate high school, you enlist, you serve your country. That's just what you do. But at 14, Bryan's grandpa handed him a guitar. Not as a career move, not because anyone thought he'd be a musician, just something to mess around with. And Bryan did mess around with it. Started writing songs, nothing serious, just a kid in his room figuring out chords. Here's what's crazy though, Bryan didn't fall in love with modern country music. He was listening to Johnny Cash, the old stuff, the raw storytelling, the kind of country that doesn't get played on the radio anymore. He was studying how Cash could make you feel something with just his voice and a guitar. No production tricks, no big budget, just honest words and simple melodies. Then something shifted when Bryan was 8 years old. His parents stopped listening to country completely. He went almost a decade without it. Instead, he dove into grunge. Nirvana became his obsession, that distorted, unpolished sound, that raw emotion, the refusal to clean things up or make them pretty. You can hear that influence in everything Bryan does now, even if people don't realize it. Fast forward to high school. Bryan's still writing songs, still playing guitar, but he's not thinking about a music career. Why would he? He's from a town of 4,000 people. Nobody makes it out, and even if they do, they don't become musicians. So he does what's expected. Enlists in the Navy right after graduation, 17 years old, following the family tradition. And this is the part everyone gets wrong. People think Bryan was just killing time in the Navy until his music career took off. That's backwards. Bryan loved the Navy. He's said it multiple times. If it was his choice, he never would have left. The military gave him structure, purpose, brotherhood. He wasn't looking for an escape. But here's what the Navy also gave him. Time, lots of it, hours of sitting around waiting, downtime between inspections, nights after loading missiles and checking ordnance. And in those gaps, Bryan kept writing, not for anyone else, not trying to build an audience, just processing his life the only way he knew how. His mom passed away in 2016, alcoholism. That loss hit him hard, really hard. And instead of shutting down, Bryan wrote about it, poured everything into songs, the grief, the confusion, the anger, the love he still felt. He wasn't trying to make hits, he was trying to survive. That's when something interesting started happening. Bryan would post these videos on YouTube and Twitter, just him and his guitar, usually outside, sometimes in front of his barracks. The production quality was terrible, the lighting was worse. But something about those videos hit different. People started watching, not millions at first, just a few hundred, then a few thousand. But the comments were intense. People weren't just saying they liked the songs, they were saying the music was helping them, that they felt understood, that they'd been looking for something real like this. And Bryan kept posting. Not because he had a strategy, not because he was trying to build a brand. He just kept doing what he'd always done, writing songs, recording them however he could, sharing them because why not? Jacksonville, Florida, 2019. Bryan got sent there for training. And something about that place, that specific time, unlocked something in him. He wrote constantly, song after song after song. They just kept coming. He'd get a melody stuck in his head and have to get it out. He recorded 12 songs in 2 days at an Airbnb. That became his debut album. He named it after his mom, Deanne. The whole thing cost almost nothing to make. No studio, no fancy equipment. Just Bryan and his buddies figuring it out with what they had. They literally had matches burning in the background of some recordings. Nobody expected anything from that album. It was just supposed to exist. But then people started finding it, and they didn't just listen, they obsessed over it. Songs like Condemned and Godspeed weren't getting radio play, weren't getting playlisted by major labels, but they were spreading anyway, person to person, fan to fan. Then came Heading South. Bryan posted a video of himself performing it on YouTube. Nothing fancy, just him in front of a building with his guitar. And that video changed everything. It didn't happen overnight. But slowly, steadily, the views started climbing. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. The song was connecting with people in a way that felt almost spiritual. What made it work? Why did that song break through when thousands of other talented artists post similar videos every day? Because it wasn't polished. That's the answer nobody wants to hear. The song worked because it sounded like a guy sitting on his porch, not a studio production. The vocals were raw, the guitar was simple, there was wind noise in the background. It felt real in a way that nothing on country radio did anymore. People were starving for that. They'd been fed overproduced, focus-grouped, radio-friendly country for years. And suddenly, here's this guy who sounds like he doesn't care about any of that. He's just singing because he has something to say. The timing mattered too. This was 2020. Everyone was stuck at home. The world felt heavy. And Bryan's music gave people permission to feel that weight. He wasn't trying to cheer anyone up or pretend everything was fine. He was sitting in the sadness with you. Heading South went platinum. No radio play, no label push, just organic growth from people sharing it with other people who needed to hear it. But here's where things get interesting. Bryan could have signed a major deal right then. Labels were calling, offers were coming in. He could have taken the money, let them shape his sound, gone the traditional route. He didn't. Instead, Bryan released another album, Elizabeth, named it after his ex-wife, recorded it in a barn near his house in Washington. Same approach, just him and a guitar, no studio, no producer telling him what to do. He was building something, but he was doing it his way. The Grand Ole Opry came next, 2021. That's not a small thing. The Opry doesn't invite just anyone. It's country music's most sacred stage. And Bryan showed up and did what he always does, played his songs the way he wrote them. The performance caught the attention of Warner Records. They wanted to sign him, but they also understood something important. You don't change what's already working. The deal they struck was different. Warner would distribute his music, but Bryan kept creative control. He'd record how he wanted, write what he wanted, no interference. That's rare. Most label deals come with strings attached, but Warner knew they had something special. Someone who'd already proven he could build an audience without them. Then the Navy made a decision that surprised everyone, including Bryan. They discharged him honorably, told him to go make music full-time. He's said multiple times that he would have stayed, that he loved serving, but the Navy saw what was happening and essentially told him this was bigger than his service now. 2022. American Heartbreak dropped. 34 songs, triple album. That's insane for a debut major label release. Most artists put out 10 to 12 tracks. Bryan gave them 34, and every single one mattered to him. He wasn't trying to fill space. He had that many stories to tell. Something in the Orange became the breakout, peaked at number 10 on the Hot 100. But here's what's wild, it got almost no country radio play. The song succeeded entirely through streaming and word of mouth. Country radio didn't know what to do with it. Too raw, too real, didn't fit their format. But the audience didn't care what radio thought. They streamed it 4 million times, made it one of the biggest country songs of the year without traditional support. That's when the industry started paying real attention. This wasn't a fluke anymore. Bryan had proven he could do this repeatedly. Build massive audiences, sell out tours, move millions of streams, all while staying completely true to his sound. The Summertime Blues EP followed. More songs, same approach. And by this point, Bryan had 14 million monthly listeners on Spotify. He'd built a genuine fan base, not casual listeners, people who connected deeply with the music. Which brings us to the $350 million catalog sale. Here's what that number represents. It's not just about the songs Bryan's already released. It's about future earnings, streaming revenue, licensing deals, sync placements in movies and TV shows, publishing rights. The company that bought his catalog is betting that Bryan's music will keep generating income for decades. And they're probably right, because Bryan did something most artists don't do. He built a foundation that lasts. His music isn't trendy. It's not chasing whatever's hot right now. It's timeless in the way that Johnny Cash is timeless, the way that real storytelling always is. 20 years from now, people will still be discovering Heading South, still finding comfort in Something in the Orange, still connecting with the raw honesty of everything Bryan creates. That's what makes a catalog valuable, not just current popularity, longevity. And Bryan's music has that built into its DNA. The path from Navy Barracks to $350 million wasn't luck. It was a series of deliberate choices, staying authentic when labels wanted to change him, building slowly when he could have rushed, trusting his audience when the industry didn't understand them. Bryan proved you don't need radio. You don't need to compromise. You don't need to sound like everyone else. You just need to mean what you say and say it honestly enough that people feel it. That's the real story, not rags to riches, not overnight success, just a guy who kept writing songs the way he knew how, and an audience that was desperate to hear exactly that. $350 million later, turns out authenticity is worth something after all.